Hello, welcome to Greenlee Art Space. My name is Kimberly Hocking and I'm the director and curator here. We're so excited that you could join us today for this panel discussion on Native American gourd art, featuring the artwork of Kalim Smith, Matthew WhiteBear McMasters, and Nadiya Littlewarrior. This program was made possible by a couple of different grants, by the Living Cultures grant from ACTA, the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, and also by a grant from the California Arts Council. We're so grateful to both of these sponsors for helping us with producing this wonderful program. We're also here at Greenlee able to do what we do because we have lots of individual donors. So if you would like to donate to us, you can go to our website, greenleeartspace.org, and you can donate. We would really appreciate it. Thank you for all of those individual donors who make this possible. So just to tell you a little bit about how it's going to go, we're going to hear from each of our panelists, a brief introduction about their work and sort of the inspiration behind their work. And then we're going to move into a section where Neshkinukat leader Kat High is going to interview the panelists and ask them different questions. So here we go, and we're so excited to have you with us. Here's Matthew.
Osio Nagad, Madu Unegayona, McMasters, Dagodo. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew WhiteBear McMasters. I am a gourd artist. Also work in other materials, but gourd has been my passion and my kind of lifeblood since I was a teenager. I was taught by my grandpa. I was introduced to the gourd work by my grandpa in making rattles and different containers, carriers, bowls. Then I've kind of just taken it all on my own and started going as far as I can push the boundaries of what I do. And so, you know, I've worked in wood, I've worked in clay, I've worked in sculptures. So I wanted to kind of bring that into the gourds itself. I wanted to see, you know, I see a lot of gourds that, you know, they keep the shapes. Other people I've seen, you know, use putties and stuff, and you don't even recognize the gourd anymore. It's become something other than. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to highlight the gourd for the gourd itself. And so what I do is I try to use as much gourd as I can to show, but disguise it into something else. And that way when somebody sees it, they never know exactly what it is, especially in the sculptures that I've done, the ones that were in the last show with the tall warrior with the headdress piece. But, you know, 90% of that was gourd. There was a wood stand and some, I like to incorporate natural like feathers, buffalo fur, you know, depending on what I'm doing, what I'm using. But I want to just try to show and showcase the gourd for what it is and all the different ways that you can use it. You know, and my people, I come from Cherokee and Creek Nation. I also have Choctaw in the background. You know, on my mom's side, my dad was Scotch-Irish. So, you know, I've lost both of them over the years. My dad just last year to COVID. But, you know, I've always been proud of and been raised to be proud of my heritage. And so that's what I do. You know, and I try to incorporate that in most of my work. I try to incorporate and showcase the heritage of my people, but also the people that have brought me into their homes and family from other nations, like the Lakota, the Dene. You know, I have a lot of special relatives, relations, do ceremonies at both places. And I've been doing that since I was a teenager with those. And so I like to represent them because they are part of my family, even though they're not part of my bloodline, they are part of my family. So, you know, I've been part of the Native community here in California since the mid to late 80s. And I've worked with many different groups, many different places. And a lot of it was outside of the gourd work. But, you know, I've been part of the Native community, powwow community for over 30 years. And so, you know, I've watched a lot of people grow. They've watched me grow, and they've watched my work grow. I've been shown in different galleries and stuff since I was about 18, 19. And my first gourd sold, I think I was 14, 15, and it was a bowl, which I still do the type of bowls, or a council bowl where everyone's sitting around. I carve them out and cut them out. And, I use everything from natural inks and dyes to watercolor to acrylics to gouache, just about anything I can to create the color that I want and to create the feeling and the look that I'm going for in the gourd work itself. For myself, my family, we're all of our kids are dancers. My brother and I used to drum back in the 80s, 90s, and teaching the kids the songs today. So, our native culture is part of our everyday life. You try to live in a ceremonial way, and I try to do that with my gourds. I know a lot of people might think it's a little hokey, but I don't start a gourd session without first starting with a prayer. I pray during the making of all of my gourds, and I ask for guidance. I ask for inspiration, and then at the end of it all, I pray that whoever gets it, whether it sells or not, or I give it away, whoever gets it, it goes in a good way, and it's comes to them in a good way, and it stays with them in a good way. I don't want to have any negativity, anything on there. But that's how I do my process. A lot of my images, a lot of my designs, the creations that I've done that are very much one of a kind, first time ever seen done, has all come from visions or prayers, or I wake up at 2, 3 in the morning and I'm sketching and writing down what I dreamed about. And that's where a lot of these things come from. So, because I was not taught how to make the gourds the way that I do them, that all has been something that's been a process over my lifetime of creating trial and error and just kind of taking a shot at it. So,
hi, my name is Kalim Smith. I'm a Creek Indian gourd artist. I do Hawaiian and Native American gourd art. I'm in Hawaii, so I could say aloha to you all. This is a kingdom of Hawaii. In other words, it's really a kingdom under occupation. And so the United States, we see it as the 50th state and whatnot, but truly 1893 was basically a hostile overthrow and landing of Marines and whatnot. And the Hawaiian kingdom was overthrown 1893. And here we are today, and so they basically had written out Hawaiian history out of the schools and whatnot, and basically tried to assimilate everyone as quickly as they could. And well, now they have internet, so everybody's finding out everything, what happened. And it was a kind of a tragic story here in Hawaii. And my wife's family is part of that tragic story and played a role in it all. So I'm actually writing a book about that. So that will be my next trick or whatever. But I think that Matthew's intro was really cool, and we're probably related somehow, because I have I'm Muskogee Creek Indian. Well, they call it Muskogee Creek, but there's a lot of different bands. So there's about 16 different tribes within our tribe. So it appears that we're Hichita, from that band of the Creek Indians. Anyway, so I'm also African American, and I'm also British. My mother is Irish English, Scottish. So the Scotch Irish, my family was some of those original Scotch Irish settlers. It might be, who knows, if you get any family from New Hampshire, then you're probably my cousin. So I'm into genealogy. So my personal genealogy, my mother is a British American who kind of grew up, not lacking for anything, let's put it that way. And then my father grew up very differently. He was born in 1939. His name is John Smith, and he was a chief, a retired Navy chief, and then also a leader of Indians of Tennessee. He worked with the Native American Indian Association, was a president of it, and also helped reestablishing Commission of Indian Affairs for Tennessee, something with that. So my dad had always been, a Navy man, and then also a Native American man too. And he's still alive. And he was in the Navy, so he got stationed in San Diego. So when my dad got stationed in San Diego, then of course all his kids got born there. And so my adopted dads, having been born in San Diego, were former Chairman Boyce Clare of Paula Indian Reservation, and then also former Chairman Phillips of Kokopah Reservation, who died not too long ago, and he was a mentor to me for a long, long time, but also a relative. So anyway, the Ipu stuff, the Gourd stuff. So I come from this line of, a varied background. I come to find out later, after I'd been working with Gourds and as a bird singer, I grew up as a, bird singer in California. We use rattles and we sing Indian songs, and through that, I ended up growing gourds for the elders that were teaching me. And as that sort of evolved, I married a Hawaiian, and then the family asked me, well, could you also grow our gourds? Because our gourds are, and I was actually mesmerized by the Hawaiian gourd when I first saw it. And so they asked if I could grow. So I went from growing stuff for rattles, like this rattle, which is what we use in California mostly. So even though I'm Creek Indian, I was raised and born in California. So I got, trained in, basically I was the right-hand man to our, the guys I was saying, my adopted dad, Mr. Phillips, he was led all the ceremonies for the tribe, for Kokopah Nation. So between California and Mexico, we were there for everything for many, many years. So I got trained intensively with that gourd rattle. And then, but then I married a Hawaiian, and the gourds got bigger. So as I, learned about that, I was asked by the elders, by my son's family, grandaunt and uncle, who were keepers of a tradition, an ancient tradition that I didn't really realize I was being passed. It was being passed down to me, but it ended up, they taught me everything and allowed me to take that on and become the teacher of it. And I got passed down this tradition of Hawaiian gourd making by family members, my son's family. And so that's kind of special. And really I took to it, and it took to me. And, you wonder where they grow the materials. Where I'm here on the farm now, so I grow it all back there, and it's a big jungle right now because I've been gone. I was only going to Carlsbad for 3 weeks and ended up staying for 3 months. So all my my weeds are going crazy. But I'm a gourd planter. I grow these little gourds. These are special gourds, and some of my gourds nobody has. This is only grows here in my farm in the world. This gourd, it's a special gourd. It's an old Hawaiian type. We cleared land and the gourd grew wild. It's funny because in 2 places that I've been affiliated with, the gourds grow wild there. Which is in Viejas, where so my other house is in the reservation, and we have wild gourds. So anyway, this is a wild gourd, and I turned it into 5 minutes, and this is what we make, little things, rattles.
Hi, I'm Nadiya, Littlewarrior. My mother gave me that name Littlewarrior when I was born at 4 pounds 8 ounces, and she was 15. So I always like to credit my mom for my awesome name. She was afraid I wouldn't make it, so she wanted to make sure I had a name that would carry me through life. I'm a gourd artist. I'm Potawatomi tribal role. All my grandmothers were Potawatomi women. I'm also Irish, Welsh on my maternal grandfather's side. On my paternal grandfather's side, I'm also Nez Perce. He was Nez Perce. And although I didn't get to meet him, I've had wonderful stories from my mom about him. So my American Indian heritage was taught to me without being told that it was a Native American heritage that I carried. My grandmother on my father's side was also Scots. So I've got the American Indian, if you will, and Scots, Irish, Welsh thing all through my history until 1547, when Jean Baptista, which I understand is the same thing as John Smith, came from France, Clermont, France. They're not sure if he was working off a debt or working off a crime, but he came up the what is that? The St. Lawrence Seaway with the Hudson Bay Company. And when he got to the shores where the Potawatomi were, he was enthralled with a woman that he married, and she was Potawatomi. So that's my lineage. My gourd art, I became in love with in 1991. I was an artist all my life. All my family were artists. As a matter of fact, my great uncle Whipple was probably the reason that so many American Indians in Arizona are named Whipple. He was a silversmith. My family challenged me to find a medium that no one in the family had, and a lady named Nancy Pendleton Brown introduced me to a woman who taught gourd art, and it was the first time in my life that I felt comfortable in my own skin. And I was able to apply all the things that my grandparents taught me and my mother taught me about being an artist, which is whatever you're feeling in your heart, whatever you're feeling in your head, that is what's going into your work. So I always pay attention when the gourd people are telling me what their regalia is supposed to look like, to how I apply the work with love and appreciation for anyone who will become the new family of that gourd person. And people say, do you make the gourds? And I always remind them, Creator makes the gourd people. I get to put the regalia on them. So I'm honored that I was allowed on my path by Creator to learn about the gourd people. And I'm thrilled. I have to tell you, I'm touched actually to be on this panel. It's an honor for me and all my ancestors, because I'm in the company of two really wonderful gourd artists that I admire. So I just want to thank you for that very much. I love when I meet the gourds, and I would love to meet those Hawaiian gourds. I love when I meet the gourd people because they're really loud and noisy. When I first see a bunch of gourds, I have to kind of calm myself down and pay attention to, because they really do. I can hear them. They're excited, and I'm excited when we meet. And you know, I listen to them. I teach people, when I do teach classes, I teach people that you need to hear things you've never heard before, see things you've never seen before, and have an open mind and heart so that you can be with them. It's just like listening to the rock people or talking or singing with the tree people. When you're with the gourd people, they will literally give you an image somehow. They know how to communicate to you. And so I have a little tiny story about once I was working on this gourd and it kept slipping out of my hands. And once it just literally I got goosebumps, flew across the floor on my ceramic tile floor. And I thought, very quickly, oh, that's going to crack and break, but it didn't. And I thought, okay, I've got such goosebumps right now. I picked the gourd up and I set it aside for 4 days. A sacred amount of time. And I came back to it and this picture just opened up and I was doing it wrong. And it didn't want me to do that. So it literally flew out of my hands. And once I picked it up after the 4 days of waiting, I saw it and it became who it was. And I was grateful for that lesson, because the gourd people are very smart. Every being is sentient. It doesn't, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, every living being has a sentiency about it. Is that a word, Kat? That if you pay attention and if you really want to know something, it'll tell you a story. It really will.
I'm going to introduce Kat High here.
Kat is going to moderate for us and going to be asking the participants about some of their artwork and some of the stories behind their art. So Kat, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and you can start the discussion.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm currently in Topanga Canyon, California. This is my backyard that you see behind me instead of my dirty laundry. And Topanga is at the junction between the Chumash and the Gabrielino Tongva people. And my yard itself is, I think, on the ancestral land of the Gabrielino Tonga. And I want to honor them for caring for this land so that I can make it my home. So I am just thrilled to have these Gourd artists with us with Neshkinukat. And I think I want to go to Kalim first. Kalim, you're one of our traditional artists who still work in the traditional way with the birdsong gourd rattles and with the ipu. Can you tell me a little bit about your artwork?
Sure. Yes, as I had mentioned in the intro, I was pretty much everything I do, I was taught by elders. So with the gourd rattle, I was taught that first. Let's see, I have one behind me. The same, a little one here, but with the gourd rattles, I was trained by an old guy, an old Kumeyaay man, and he taught me. He was an old bird singer, and I pretty much everything I make, it was the culmination of spending many hours with someone, and usually I wasn't really taught in a way like, I'm going to teach you how to do this, but more like I was, sitting there and they were making it, and I was watching it being made, and then as I was making one myself, then I would get advice on what to do to make it better, and then just through using it. So as you go through life, as many of the people who do the traditional things, they also make their own instruments. So it's not that I was making for anybody other than me and my couple of friends, because most people make their own. And many of the different bird singers actually grow their own. I guess you'd say there are some of the people that still maintain the gourd traditions of the Native Americans would be in Southern California and Arizona would be the singers, because they're the ones who need the gourd, so they grow it. So that's kind of the tradition I came from with that. And then with the ipu heke, it's just the other ipu, the Hawaiian ipu, like this one here. Again, a traditional way of being taught. And as I said in the intro, I didn't sort of realize what all was being passed down to me, but now I actually find it really, I feel like I've been given this great gift from both sides of my family, the Hawaiian sides and the Native American side, this gift of ipu. And even since, we've taken our ipu back across to Great Britain to my family in Scotland. And so they hold one of our Hawaiian ipu is actually in our family home in Scotland, up in the Western Highlands, at the Cochrane family home. So our gourds are sort of travel the world, and I think they always have. And so have the people. And our lineages represent those culminations, and then our gourds kind of are sort of embody that universal connection to the plants. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I just maintain it. I've not made up I don't really create anything new. I just do old things. I make bowls and gourd containers and ipu and rattles and things like that.
Can you show us some of the images of the gourds that you have done? I think, Kimberly, you've got some images that Kalim could talk about.
Oh, there we go.
We go.
Yeah, so that's an ipu heke, and you see, actually I got a Native American t-shirt on, so that's cool. But I make most of my ipu heke here in Hawaii, and most of my rattles I make in California in Viejas. But that ipu heke, as you can see, the the center of it has a certain design on it, and it's a special design that many of my ipu are known by. Many of the people who have mine will find that theirs have that on it. If I made it that sort of jagged design, it looks like a shark tooth design, but actually it's a design that reflects our volcanic topography of a very special place that I go to often up by the crater in Volcano. So that's what it really represents. And then there's a group there of students that had just made their first Ipu Heke with me. So I do a lot of teaching and passing on what I know. Many of the hula dancers across the islands, Japan and the United States may have made an Ipu with me. And there I am with Kumu Hula Kawi Deliria, a good friend, and we're at the KIK Ka'ei Kahelelani Halal property here in Keauhou. And that's little Toby there, the little Shih Tzu I'm holding. So,
Can we hear the song?
Yeah, we're
Kalim?
gonna hear the song now, I think.
This is my wife, Kahelelani, and her chant, a chant composed by her sister.
Ai uhola iano. Uhola iano. Uhola iano. Ke aola ni e maluhia hala ino. Uhola iano. Ke aola ni e maluhia hala ino. Kaukamaka. Kaukamaka hinalau kapali e ahelau makanino. Kaukamaka hinalau kapali e ahelau makanino. Pahikino, pahikino, ike auli e ihila ni maholino. Pahikino, ike auli e ihila ni maholino. Huana, huana iano ke aula ni e maluhia hala ino. Huana iano ke aula ni e maluhia hala ino. Hemele no uhola iano.
Right on. Yeah, it was just a nice section of a chant with the Ipu Heke. And so there you have an Ipu flower. Ipu have male and female flowers, and the gourd flower. You know, I use the word Ipu and gourd interchangeably. It's the Hawaiian word for gourd is Ipu, if I didn't explain that. So there you have the flower, and that's a male flower, and it's got the pollen there. And oftentimes, you know, in order to use that flower, which is a very delicate flower, but to use the pollen, we remove the petals, and then I hand pollinate. Pretty much all of my gourds are hand pollinated, so I know exactly what I'm getting, and I've been doing that for many years. And there's an Ipu Heke that I've created with a sort of some of the other small things that might have been just on my workshop floor at the time. One gourd is actually holding all the insides from probably that Ipu Heke I had just made. And, you know, I just really enjoyed the way the light played on it. And you know, the funny thing is I don't see myself as an artist. I hadn't thought of it that way. I just sort of make things that are, make things that we need. And they are also end up being nice to look at. So sort of maybe functional art, I guess you could say. And there's an Ipu Heke and an Ipu Heke Ole. The Ipu Heke has the top on it, and that's the sort of the highest, the traditional instrument that would be used to, say, honor a chief or play a sacred ancient hula mele or oli to accompany that. And then the Ipu Heke Ole in the foreground, you see has the handle on it, and that would be more of used for a modern day hula.
Kalim, how do you connect them together? I see two gourds connected together, or is it one gourd?
great question. Yeah, so they are two connected together. So that's the whole process, is sort of finding the right match, and they have to have a resonance. And really, it's a certain feeling I get to know which two are supposed to be together. I did happen to study all of the gourds, the old gourds at Bishop Museum. I had that opportunity to go down into the vaults and study all the old ones. And I actually took kind of a scientific approach, coming from, I was a student at Berkeley, UCSD, and San Diego State, and did a bit of research at Harvard. So with all of that being said, when I went to the archives at Bishop, I had a notebook. So after I studied all those old ones, I realized that the way they put them together was very much about exactly the same way my Auntie Donna had taught me to put them together. And basically it's one gourd, the Heke gourd, over the bottom, or Olo gourd, and they're bound with resin on the inside, and creates a nice bond there, which is watertight. In the olden days, they might have used the sap of a breadfruit tree, trees that I've planted recently. So we're waiting on that to happen. In the meanwhile, I use modern glues, but in a very similar way that they were done in the museum, and as the way that I was taught by.
I think we're losing some of it. Matthew, I would love to go to you and find out, where do you get your gourds?
Everything that I have or I've obtained comes from different sources. Most of them, in the years that I have, I tried growing them myself, and I have grown them, but living in the high desert, Lancaster, California, we are always on a type of a water shortage. So in the years, in the early years, it was not a problem to grow some. But as we have gone on, and today we get so little rain anymore, we're on that shortage, and therefore I can't grow them anymore. So I have to rely on gourd farms. There's one in particular down San Diego County that I get from, but lately, last year, I was gifted with quite a few gourds, and they were given to me because the lady who gifted them liked what I did, and she respected the what I did, and she is no longer able to do the gourds herself, so she donated them to me, and I've donated them out to other gourd artists and friends, because there is quite a few, and I've been blessed and honored in that way. But normally I will buy them. Unfortunately, I have to buy them from other rather than grow them myself.
Thank you. Nadiya, I've seen you growing gourds in your yard, and I'm currently growing gourds in my yard for you both, and they're taking over. Nadiya, where do you get your gourds?
I have grown them, as you mentioned, and I also, like Matthew, use the Wellburn Gourd Farm down near Temecula. And there is one of my favorite places is in Georgia, the Bruce Gore Farms. He and his 3 daughters grow all kinds of vegetables and fruits and gourds for gourd artists. And he has a really high quality. I only have memorized his Bruce Gore at AOL.com. You can find gourds there. They're a wonderful family. And then there's a lady in Kentucky that grows the earrings and necklaces gourds that I use. They're teeny tiny, and I get those from her. The best place, I guess, other than those 3 that I often shop from, is, quite frankly, I go eBay, crafts, arts and crafts, and gourds, and they have like an auction all the time on eBay from different gourd growers across, well, the world really, but certainly across the nation. So that's basically where my gourds come from. But I do like to go and see them in person and get them that way.
So Matthew, I want to go back to you, and I know a lot of your gourds tell a story, and there's one that we got a glimpse of earlier around the council fire. Can you tell us the story about that gourd arrangement?
Council of the Old Ones is what I've called this one here. In the old traditional ways and beliefs, the animals used to speak and speak to us, our people. And, you know, they would guide and they had their own council of running things and how the world should be treated and how the things should be done. And so I wanted to convey that in a way where it brought it, you know, the belief is that, you know, we stopped hearing how the animals would speak. We stopped learning how to talk to them, how to hear them in the way to where they could tell us, continue to tell us. You know, we're getting back into that, but in the old times, I just wanted to represent that council of elders of those animals, and they represented all the medicines that handle the world and handled our people. And so, you know, you have the buffalo, and you have the bear, the eagle, the wolf. Now, there's many other animals that are part of that original council that also has their own medicine ways, own messages, own things of doing. And so I will end up representing those. But at this time, this was the first step that I had done. And so, you know, I built the fire is also out of gourd. It's out of 2 gourds. That I had hand carved into the flames rising. Then I painted each one, then I attached those together to give a kind of 3D dimensional effect. And you know, with the texture on the fur itself, or the feathers, the horns, the little beard on the buffalo, the little tiny ears on the bear and the wolf, those are all hand-carved gourd and separately attached into those gourd, and then I texture it. Now, the texturing is outside of the gourd realm, you know, but I wanted to bring that life to it rather than leave a flat look. And what I use is a thick acrylic medium, and it takes almost a day for each layer that you add to dry fully, so I can add another layer on top. And by doing that, each one of those, the more texture, the days it takes to actually build up until I get to the look and the thick fur and everything that is you know, looked on that. And so each one of these can take anywhere from 14 days up to the bigger, larger sculptures I've done can take up to almost 2 months because of just the individual texturing and then painting on top of that. I've got a brand new one, a small mask if you want to see it. Hoping to show kind of the detail. This one is more in, I never do gourds to represent the ceremonies or any of the traditional like booger mask ceremonies, anything like that. I try to stay away from replicating any ceremonial masks just in case they do sell. I don't believe in that myself. You know, I like to honor different things and get as close, but not exact. This is the first one I've ever done that would be considered in one of those ranges. But I wanted to represent, this one's called Walking the Red Road. And the designs I did is I took from different traditional designs leading from the eyes as we walk that red path, but the black dots represent every step we take is an unknown step. And so that's where the black is, that black mystery, that direction of mystery. And so, you know, I wanted to, you know, it's more of a symbolic set, and there's, you know, in each direction goes that red road that we walk. No matter which path we take, we're always on that same road. And so, you know, this one is my latest one that I did. I was able to finish before the presentation, and I've got some others. You know, I do a lot of with social. You know,
Wow.
This one was one that I finished. This one is called Ama Ganida, which means water is life in Cherokee. And so what I did was I created a gourd that looked like a water vessel. And what you can't see is there's actually, I've got carved water symbols all around this gourd. And I wanted to make it look like an old fired clay pot. And so that's why the different texture, different look of that color, pouring the water as it flows down onto this wood, which everything depends on the water to live. And this wood would have been one of the items. And so I created with still some of that texturing, the water flowing as it runs off and sprays. And then as you get everything has a spirit. I represented that here. I kind of ghosted a face in there of the spirit of that water as she kind of flows around. But as you look around, it looks like you're looking down from the sky, and I'm talking high up in the sky. When you see like the satellite images of the water and the clouds laying over the water, that's kind of what I wanted to give. And there's so many colors in this that unfortunately we won't be able to get on the computer, but there's textures and everything that you can see. And when it's in the sunlight, it's pretty spectacular for the color wise and the way it came out. I was real happy with it. And I hand carved the wood stump out so that I could set that in, and it's a freestanding, free form sculpture.
Matthew, that's awesome. That's impressive. And,
Oh,
and I
thank
hope
you.
that's going to be in the gallery exhibit that is going to culminate our sessions at the Greenlee Art Space. Please.
If they can have one that is standing like they did last year, I would love to put it in there.
So
We can
Nadiya,
definitely do that. Yep.
Nadiya, I want to go to you, and I know you've told the story of your grandfather mask, and I would love to hear you share that story with us.
Oh, thank you, Kat. Yes, Grandfather's Dreams is for my maternal grandfather, who was one of the most quiet men I've ever known in my entire life. This piece right here, I'm just going to lift it up and show it to you myself right here. Grandfather's Dreams is, of course, a gourd, and he's draped in gray leather with black leather and gray leather lacings. And he has a coral pendant piece that I rescued from the Salvation Army. And of course, it's legal for me to use parrot feathers if I'm going to show a work. And it's literally represents the path that my grandfather and my grandmother taught me, and didn't notate was Native American. My grandfather believed in us telling him our dreams. So that was something that was very important. And he was very influential in my life. He was also an artist. Grandfather, we called him Daddy John. And he prayed all the time. And by that, we used to joke with him, and his brothers used to tease him because he smoked at one time in his life. And he said, "Don't bug me about my smoking. I'm praying. When I'm smoking, you need to be quiet." That was one story. I don't know. There's so many stories about my grandfather. I'm not sure what story you're talking about, Kat.
My question was, why is he half hidden?
He's dreaming. Everything in the dreams are kind of like a secret, right? There's mystery in the dreaming.
That's beautiful. Kalim, are you still with us? Yes. Yes. Can you tell some of the stories that go with the ipu and the ipu heke?
Stories? You mean personal stories or ancient stories?
If you've got some ancient stories you can share, that would be wonderful.
Well, oh, here's a fun one. They say that, you know, the Hawaiian, there's different origin stories for gourds, and even in Hawaii, there's a few different stories. But one of basically a theme is that the gourd is a representation of the god of agriculture, Lono. So basically a form of that, and so you'll find that in different forms as the certain fertile rains, you know, rains that produce fertility, and the ipu or the gourd and the kukui tree, like that tree back there. These are different representations of Lono. So also the pig, you know, I could have taken you down by my pig pen. I keep the black pig, which is a traditional pig used for ceremonial use and also for feeding the community. So the gourd has a lot of different. The gourd ties into different facets of the Hawaiian culture and also in Native America. And as far as the, you know, old stories on the Indian side, a lot of the origin stories, I don't know. I'd have to find out and ask. But my father they grew gourds, but I didn't even know that until I was, you know, much older. When I, you know, became already known for doing things with gourds, and then my dad finally told me, "Oh yeah, we always use those for water and blah blah blah," because he grew up on a farm with no electricity, and he grew up very old way, you know, selling vegetables, and they had a wagon and a horse. They didn't drive or they didn't have modern conveniences. Anyway, so I come right down. I'm only one generation away from people who lived off that way. So with the gourd, one last thing is about origin here in Hawaii. Let me just jump you back from America back to Hawaii. They say they come from a cave that they had sort of grown in this cave, and it's just fascinating that Hawaii is full of caves, you know, and they have their origin stories. But I was just, as I had mentioned in the video or earlier, that this specific gourd, which I, put actually, I designed it a little bit. This specific gourd grew right here in this volcanic territory, which is kind of represented also in the Ipu Heke with my design. So I try to, I don't know, it's hard to explain in like a 2-minute thing, the thing that we do, at our life's work. I'm sure Matthew, I don't know how you put it all into like really good sound bites. I'm not used to talking about my work actually. So I got to get used to this, but it's all, there's so many connections from the old stories to the new stories that I find that there's not really any difference, this whole continuum idea that we're just part of, connecting to our ancestors and also to the ones that are to come later. It's not a bunch of talk. It's really true, and And like I said, my dad used gourds. I'm sure that his grandparents, because he was raised on his grandparents' farm, so they must have used gourd. I mean, that's where it came from, et cetera, et cetera. We're just part of this long story. So ancient to now, I think whatever use, like whatever I'm doing with gourds, whatever Matthew's doing, or whatever with Littlewarrior's doing, it all connects back to our past, even if we're doing, no matter what we're even doing right now. It's so universal that I believe that even if you're Norwegian or something, you probably have a connection to gourd through your own tradition. So I think it's just a beautiful thing, because so many of us are interracial or multi-ethnic, or however you want to put it, that the gourd connects all people. That's a beautiful part of it all.
Kalim, I'm really fascinated with the trellises that you built to grow your gourds, because I'm growing gourds and they have overcome my little trellises and are now climbing up my bottle brush hedge.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to see because I'm overgrown a few months. But really the trellises, as long as, if you use a good sturdy 2x4 or something, depends on the kind of gourds you're growing. If you're growing bigger gourds, you don't want to hang them too high because they will, fall and break. Or if you're growing smaller gourds, then you can. And they mentioned Wellburn Gourd Farm. That's a wonderful place. I get a lot of gourds there and have in the past. And the owner was a wonderful man. He was a good friend of mine and to my family. In fact, the person who taught me how to make gourds, Auntie Donna, she was a good friend of his. So they introduced me, and also on the Indian side, we as Indians, those who didn't grow gourds would go to Wellburn and get some. So I had already known that because before I grew them, I had got some at Wellburn. So Wellburn actually inadvertently has a big part in, I think, almost everybody's life. And, if you didn't know him personally, I will just say, may he rest in peace. He was a wonderful man. Didn't say much, but he got a lot done and he had a great heart. Our stories can just go off into so many tangents. I'm just going to be quiet.
Thank you. Nadiya, I wanted to go back to you a moment, and we haven't seen more of your gourds. And can you show us a little more of your artwork?
Oh, sure. Here's one you can't really see. I'll hold it up. Oh, that one. Oh, let's talk about
we have slides that we can go through. Okay,
this is great. Butterfly Dreams is the second in a series about butterflies being endangered. And this particular blue butterfly, while I read about it in the LA Times, and while I was working on it and making prayers for those butterflies, you can see around the bottom there's flowers for them to eat from, and there's sanctuary in Brazil and in somewhere near Marina del Rey or Playa del Rey, I believe, in California. They fly back and forth between those two areas. And I read in the LA Times later, after that piece was finished, that those two sanctuaries were working in cooperation with each other. So I felt like Creator had actually answered some prayers there. And I always like to point that out to people, that when you're praying, you just have confidence because Creator is always listening. And that's called Butterfly Dreams. It has dream catchers built into it. That little feather is a piece of a gourd. Oh, yes. Now, Peace at the Altar, P-E-A-C-E. The altar has a buffalo skull and some upside down sequins to represent the altar shining. Now, the hands are like the Creator's loving hands of life, sort of. And there's stars and planets in there represented by turquoise and metallic stars. You can't see in that photo, but there are cactus images, and there's a lot of glitter, a whole lot of glitter, because there's a lot of shiny stuff going on when you're praying at the altar, and lots of, it's not magic, but lots of fun stuff going on the altar. And leather is representing air. Mhm. Oh, the woodlands flowers. And look at me, I put that ribbon in that picture. I'm such a braggart. It's hand beaded into the gourd. All those beads are not glued on, they're not strung on, they're not wrapped on. They're literally hand sewn into the gourd as if I were beading on leather. In a normal way, I chose to bead into the gourd. And I used 2 needles, a steel quilting sharp to make the first opening, followed by the beading needle. And you have to do it rather rapidly because those holes will close up themselves. These gourd people have magic in them even after they're not on the vine, even after they have dried. But that's a woodlands flowers design. It's ancient. And up at the top represents all the different kinds of people. And in not surprisingly, the connection that we all have with each other and with the Gourd people. So Kalim was very right on, very spot on, as my grandmother used to say, about the connection between the Gourd people and the two-legged. So thank you for showing that one. Buckskin dancer is literally made in honor of all those ladies that are buckskin dancers that get out there in the sacred circle, in the arena that they call it now at the modern powwows, gatherings, the prayer circles of the arenas are prayer circles. And while the drumming is happening, the dancers are praying while they're dancing, and they're sacred dances, and they're for all people. To do well in life and take care of Mother Earth. And the leather is the buckskin. And then they're hand beaded, the leather's hand beaded into the gourd. I finish up the beaded gourds with paper mache because I'm a little bit French. And it also protects the strings from the beads. So, and that's a modern, of course, representation of buckskin dancers. And in that hand flap of hand beading, there's a semblance of butterflies wanted to be there. So that was that is the buckskin dancer. 100 teeny tiny gourds from Kentucky that, again, bragging, if you will. A collector of mine owns that and I was honored that he chose to purchase it. He has many of my gourds. Each one of those is different. They're, like I said, teeny tiny, maybe not even an inch across. And that's a thimble holder that I confiscated or rescued, if you will, from the Salvation Army. Again, I do hang out at the Salvation Army because I find things there that need rescuing. Thank you for showing that one too.
Kimberly, talk about this one. And are we getting ready to go to questions or how's our time?
Yeah, we're doing well. I think Nadiya can finish talking here. I haven't seen any questions yet. So if any of you have questions from the things that have been talked about, or any of the artists, if you have questions for one another, I love to see all the connections that we're making. So we'll have Nadiya finish up on this one, Kat, and then we can see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you.
This is a purse, and it opens up. I don't know if I'm on screen or not, but it opens up and has a cloth lining, and it's called My Pony's Feet because it has a horseshoe on it, and it has a flower because Potawatomi people are known for flowers on regalia. So it's a gourd purse with cane handles. I did not do anything with this cane. I will tell you right now, I purchased the handles, but that's that gourd purse that I made called My Pony's Feet.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing with us and for all of our participants who have come to hear about this wonderful work. We thank you for being part of this very special time. And Kat, what a wonderful job you've done of asking all of our participants these questions that have brought out so many different really interesting questions. So it looks like I've got a question here. It says, to Matthew WhiteBear, if you were to make a gourd bottle, what kind of sealant would you use to coat the inside? So we're going to go to Matthew here. And Matthew, you can unmute yourself.
I've never made the drinking vessel. I have made bottle gourds and different gourds like that. But I have not actually used them. But I do know among the gourd communities, that's a pretty popular question. And there's several different materials you can use to make it watertight and to make it safe to drink out of. And I know one of them is a wax. What brand of wax, I cannot tell you. I can try to find out. I just don't know where I can post it for you later. But there's a couple different waxes that people use. The same that they use in the old wood bowls, that they have to keep retreating the wood bowls. And you can use that, and it makes it safe to carry water in. And there's also some natural ones. There's natural that our ancestors and people that used the gourds as water gourds never had that kind of like the paraffin waxes and stuff like that. But there are some natural remedies, and you can definitely ask that question online, and you'll probably get about 1,000 answers on it. I wish I had something more for you now, but I definitely can hope that directs you to where you need to get that answer.
I have a couple of things I wanted to share with everyone. Nadiya is an excellent teacher of gourd art, and I wanted to share with you this gourd that my son Joel created while in one of her classes, and she guided him all the way through the whole process and dreaming up the images that he was going to use. And I cherish this gourd. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is this new book that has just come out, hey, Notable Native Americans. And in this book, which is geared for young readers, is Kalim Smith and a story about him, as well as James Luna, who is Richard Bugby's cousin. I just wanted to say that. But it's come out, it's by Adrian Keene. Congratulations to Kalim for being included in this book on 50 change makers and visionary Native people.
Wonderful. Well, we do have a few more questions. I'm not sure if Matthew already answered this one, but I guess if any of the other artists wanted to respond, we have kind of similar to the other question. If you're preparing the inside of the gourd, how do you prepare it so it doesn't succumb to rot? Is one of the questions that we had. Do any of the artists have a answer to that they'd like to share?
Well, I'll just say what I do. When I'm done creating a gourd and I'm hollowing it out, once it's completely hollowed out and got down to the actual base of it, got rid of all the inner mold and inner mildews and the extra material inside, I will, like what I do with all the gourds, once I'm done creating and working on them, I put a lacquer on top, a spray lacquer, and it's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 coats because it not only enhances the colors that I've used and brings them back to what it should be looking at and get rid of that dull finish, but it also puts a protective coating on top that, if it gets wet or if you live in a very humid environment. But I also do the same thing with the inside. I spray it, and it seals, puts a little sealer in there, because I'm not going to use it for food or water or anything. It's just for display, but it stops the aging process, and it stops it from mildewing or degrading anymore. But I'm sure Nadiya and Kalim, especially, both of them probably have another solution as well that they might want to add.
Thank you,
Unmute,
Matthew.
Nadiya.
Nadiya, you want to tell us what you do?
Well, I'll tell you about two things that I've been taught and I have done once. The water, boil water, put a finished, clean, scrubbed out gourd, undecorated, cut like you want, put it in the boiling water, no more than 3 or 4 minutes, right? And take it outside and set it out in the sun and let it dry naturally again. And do that, I'm taught 4 times. And that gives it that inability to rot anymore. And also can be used like, I understand that works really well for water drums, the gourd water drums, also the finishing. And then there's a gentleman from New Mexico who also grows gourds, and he once, we talked once, and he once told me that the best thing to do with a gourd is to put it in the oven for very low, like 200 for a little bit, and bake it. And now you can do that whether it's open or not, as long as it's completely dry. But to bake it also gives it a solidarity that is supposed to be a treatment for protecting the inside from not changing, so to speak, you know. And it doesn't smell bad either, so but that's just me. So those are 2 ways I've heard. I do know about the waxing. That works well, and I don't know what kind of wax other than beeswax that is healthy and safe, but I have never done that. So it needs research.
Great. Thanks, panelists, for sharing your amazing art and deep knowledge with us. We have a question here from Joe Campion. He's asking, for someone like myself who wants to start into gourd work, what do you consider appropriate for designs? I would hate to unintentionally put something on the gourd that would disrespect a culture or people. So I don't know if someone wants to address that, if you have any thoughts on that question. Nadiya or Kalim?
Sure, I can do that one.
Thank you, Kalim.
Yeah, I would say if you don't have a specific ethnic background that you want to represent, you know, maybe, of course, say if you're Irish, there's all kinds of awesome, amazing, beautiful Celtic designs you could work with. Or even if you're not Irish but like them, you could use them, I guess, and if you knew what you were using them for. But I would say, you know, if you didn't want to say offend a certain group or whatever, you know, go into nature and see what you find. You know, there's so much natural design. Like behind me, there's some palm trees, and when you really look at the way that the fronds interact with each other, you can see so many beautiful natural designs. Or if you took a gourd itself and just layered gourd upon gourd and see what designs you could find. So I go to nature oftentimes, and I just take a really close look at something I'm interested in, just like this shirt I'm wearing, made by my friend. Here we go. Let's plug all our friends. Sig Zane from Sig Zane Designs in Hilo. Taking natural designs and then using them in your modern context can be a lot of fun. And so your own creativity, I think, might just you might have a good time with that.
Thanks, Kalim. That's wonderful.
I
Does
have
any
a
other
suggestion.
Yeah, Kat, let's go. We'll go to you, Kat, just a second here.
What I encourage people to do is look at their roots. And this isn't, I use this with using white sage. You know, look at your roots and find what your roots use as symbols and as medicine and as healing, and that's a good place to start with where your roots touch the earth.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Kat. Do any of the other artists want to respond to that? I think it's a really interesting question.
The only thing I can say is, you know, if you want, Kalim hit it on the head with the natural designs really works, or whatever you're into. I mean, gourds are such a universal material, and it's a universal intertribal, you know, every nationality that has had them or uses them now. I see people making, you know, Christmas items, Easter items, you know, Halloween items. It really doesn't matter. You can, if you're wanting specifically just to work in gourds and you have a design, if you're into cartoons or you're into, you know, sports, you can do that. It's your gourd. You know, if you want to represent, like he said, if you want to get into a cultural, then you definitely research your background and know that you're representing your own in the best way you can, most, you know, respectful way you can. But like anything else, there are a million designs that have been given to the general public to use in beadwork, in paintings, and everything that, you know, you can, if you want to represent the Southwest, you can use lizards, you can use whatever, and it's not interfering or overlapping or stepping on toes. But really and truly, I like Kalim's answer with, you know, look into nature, get as abstract or as realistic as you want. And whether it be animal, you know, natural, mineral, you know, plant, whatever it is, that's kind of where I go with it. And good luck on your journey with that.
And it's been so amazing to hear from each of these individuals. And yeah, we're just so grateful for you all coming and for your wonderful questions and all of that. We'll put links and contact things in our YouTube afterwards. And yeah, thank you to the artist, and just thank you for the beautiful way that you work. And we're so grateful for all the participants and your wonderful questions. We hope that you can join us for our next panel discussion, which is going to be on beadwork, I believe. Is that right, Kat?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, our next discussion will be on beadwork, and you can see all the dates and everything on our website at greenleeartspace.org. So we'll get the links up there soon so you can sign up. And yeah, so I think we're about done here. So if everyone wants to just unmute and say goodbye, we could do that, and we could give a little clap to the artist. So bravo, artist.
Bravo. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, artist.
Wado. Dada go honey.
You will, Ma.
You will.
Wonderful.
Kat is speaking in Kumeyaay.
Yes.
Kumeyaay. Nice.
She said, "See you later."
Hey, bye.
Yeah. Big thank you. Miigwech.